So, I, first of all, just wanted to thank you for this film. It's a film that I saw a few months ago, and I think I've thought about it every day since then. I wanted to start by asking, because this feels like a very of the moment with some of the things that are going on with Pansy and some of the things that she's nervous about. There's a sense of perhaps a pandemic just happened, things that I related to quite much. So I wanted to talk to you about the origins of this project, knowing your process, knowing the way that you work with actors, knowing the way that you develop these characters and these stories together. I'd love for the three of you to talk to us about the development of this film.
I think I would have to say that, of course, we are in the times we're in, and we are in post-pandemic times, etc. But so far as I'm concerned, really what the film is about and what it deals with is not, it is kind of universal. It doesn't really, I never really have thought about anything in the film or the conception of the film specifically in post-pandemic terms. I mean, there's one reference to the pandemic during the film, to COVID. So that's what I would say about that. So in that sense, it's not possible to talk about, it really isn't possible to talk about the conception of the film. And that in itself is quite difficult to talk about, because it's in the way that we make these films of mine, and this film is no exception, that we really embark on a journey of discovery as to what the film is through the process of making it. So, of course, I have possible notions and things that ongoing preoccupations which you can actually see running through my work. And then I make putative decisions by casting people. I mean, obviously, I've made a decision with this film to look at a particular corner of society, which is obvious. And there are, we worked together first of all 30 years ago on a stage play. Then we made Secrets and Lies. We haven't been able to work together since. So one of the outstanding things was, let's do a film let's get Marianne, and she's up for it, I'm up for it, and so on. And that leaves me thinking about possibilities, and, but, in the end, this kind of filmmaking, so far as I'm concerned, is best explained by saying it's how painters paint pictures, how novelists write novels, how poets write poetry, how musicians work, etc., etc. You interact with the material and you discover what the material is on the journey of its manufacture. So that really is what I would say.
Marianne, Tuwaine, I think when I saw the film, one of my immediate questions, something I wonder frankly about many actors and their performances, is just about the emotional and intellectual work of being that character for the time it takes to make a film. Marianne, what was it like? I have to say, I saw the film and I was like, wow, I cannot imagine being in the space of that character for that long, for either of you.
Terrifying, exciting, challenging, exhilarating. I mean, it was a combination of things. Obviously, the way that we work, we're very, very, very strict about coming out of character and not going home and being this person. But there obviously are elements of it, that you sort of walk around with. You have their voices in your head, for example. When you're acting or living anxiety, fear, and all that stuff, intellectually you know that you're not really doing those things, but your body doesn't necessarily know. So it's complicated, but I think we're very well looked after during the process, and we're told strictly come out of character. We warm up into character. So, yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic time for exploration and discovery. You know?
I mean, for me, this kind of stuff works only, and the only kind of actors that can do it and that I work with are character actors. There are plenty of very good actors around who are not character actors, who play themselves, who are not interested in playing somebody who isn't them. These guys, and the people I work with, always, right across the board, are people who are not only good at and brilliant at doing all sorts of characters, but want to do people out there in the street, real people. I think that's really important, you know, to say. And Tuwaine is no exception.
Thank you. And carry on from what Mike and Marianne were saying, we just had a safe space and very strict rules to go into character, come out of character, and we had the time to do that as well. It never felt rushed, which I think is very important. And also, you know, referring to your character by, you know, by their name rather than being like, I think that, because that's when...
In the third person.
In the third person, exactly. Because then you don't want to mumble up the lives of yourself and your character. Oh, this character you're playing.
But of course, when they go into character, you can have famous improvisations that go on for hours and hours, staying in character. No, and it grows and it becomes, you know, and for me, that's of course, this is the material then to take and be able to draw from and to distill into the very precise action that you see on the screen, none of which, of course, is improvised on screen. But improvisation in character plays an enormous part, if not the central part, of the whole operation.
Recently you've spoken a bit about the difficulty that you've had making films, getting people to finance your films, etc. And is part of the difficulty there your process? Is that something that it seems that perhaps the system does not understand still at this stage?
It's not really it's not a matter of people understanding or not understanding what I do when I do it with my colleagues both sides of the camera. It's another more basic and straightforward thing. I say, give us the money to make a film. I can't tell you anything about it. We don't know what it's going to be. I can't discuss casting, and please don't interfere with us while we're making it. I've made 28 films, so I've got away with it quite a lot. But more recently, it's got tougher because for all kinds of reasons which may or may not be to do with the streamers and other things. You know, we hear, yeah, we really like what you do and we appreciate the way you work, but not for us. And not for us means we ain't going to back a film where we don't know what it is, we can't subject it to algorithms, and we sure as hell aren't going to get involved with a film where we can't interfere with it and fuck it up. So that's the short answer to your question.
Marianne, this is something that you've spoken about over the years as well in terms of roles available to you. Yeah, I did. I did some Googling on my break, sure. But I think that this is something that you've said a word about before, just like wanting more roles. That this is the kind of role that I think is extraordinary in part because I didn't see it coming from you, because you seem so nice. In part.
Don't you believe it?
But this feels like such a titanic role for you, and I'm wondering just how it feels for you at this stage in your career to have a role like this, which is a swerve, I think, away from what I associate you with, and not only in Mike's work, but also just in your other work. I don't think I've seen you play a woman like this before.
Wowza, Cora. Well, I've not read anything like this. You know, nothing like this has ever come to me before. I think it's ironic that the role that I became known for was with Mike Leigh, and now this again is with Mike Leigh, and it's working in this collaborative way where an actor gets to use, you know, their talent, the majority of their talent, you know, everything they have in the piece. I just don't see it. I don't see this type of work, these types of films that often anymore, which is a shame. I think that if working in this way were given more credit, people had more time to rehearse, for example, as opposed to just showing up on set and being, oh, meet this guy, he's playing your husband. You've been together for 30 years. Okay, action. I think you'd get more in-depth sort of work.
Totally. I mean, Tuwaine, for you as well, at this stage of your career, one of the really difficult and striking things about your role, I think, is that you are on the receiving end of so much, and you have to make such a character out of someone who is passive. Yeah. Can you talk to us about turning that, like the humanity of that? It's really difficult, I think.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that will always stick with me was we had a rehearsal, and I've been out of drama school, I think, for 5 or 6 years now, and you always have this thing where it's like, oh, when improvising, always say yes and, that was my thing. That was what I learned. And we had a rehearsal where Pansy was getting at Moses, and I got into my head and I was like, oh, I really should say something. gonna have to say something because, yes and. And I remember having a discussion with Mike about it, and it's truthful and it's real life that sometimes you just don't respond, and when I heard that, I was like, right, now I'm able to actually just explore that and how that feels. And it was a lot, but as I said, we had a lot of time together outside of that rehearsal space, and we all love one another, and it's beautiful, yeah, so it's been great.
I would like to open it up to the audience. I think we have a mic running around up here. Oh, 1 second, the mic's coming to you. Sorry, Mike, I know you're running around a lot.
Thank you. Congratulations to all of you. The movie is so natural that I wonder how much was written and how much was done right on the set. Thank you.
The movie's so natural. How much was written? How much was done on set? So it's a question about your process.
Nothing you see is improvised on camera. It's a very tightly scripted film, but there was never a script in the conventional sense. We arrive at what you see in its precision, in its action, in its dialogue, in its language, by a process of starting by improvising and then scripting through rehearsal. In other words, by a process of rehearsal, converting it into precise action. So to answer your question, which is about what was created on set, everything is created on set, because we've been talking in this conversation mostly about the preparatory period, but when we get to the shoot, scene by scene, sequence by sequence, location by location, we work without the film crew there, have improvisations and convert that material with input from me and from the characters into the precise action. And then the crew comes back and then we shoot the thing very precisely, and you will see in a mostly classical kind of way, in terms of film discipline. So to answer your question, in a way it's all created on set, but it's not, that doesn't mean that people are sort of making it up on camera and we're shooting a lot of wild footage that we take away and sort of try to work out what to do with. It's not that kind of film.
Up front. Wait for the mic.
Yeah, this is a question for, it's when you've got all these characters developed so strongly and you're able to get to these, through rehearsal and improvisation, get to these amazing moments which you document and turn into the script. What have you ever talked to the people who finance the projects about doing something even longer term, meaning once the actors are developed in that way, could you not keep going and not just make a film, but make like a series with characters that you've developed in this way? And I'm just curious, it seems like that has always been an opportunity, but maybe not from the financial side, I don't know. But once the characters are developed, I'm just curious, why not keep going?
So your question really is, why don't I do that? It's not, I mean, the honest answer to this, I think really is it's never actually occurred to me till you mentioned it. Because each film is a standing artifact in its own right, and probably you've seen a few of my films, judging from your question, and you can see that there's a consistency in style, but actually, in many ways, they're all different from each other. And that's what I'm interested in, to investigate within the genre, different things in different ways, within the genre, in different styles, sort of. But each film is a standing artifact, and hey, let's move on to the next thing. And the idea, which, as I say, only you have put into my head, of becoming an ongoing disease for which there is no cure, does not appeal. Nice try.
Hi, thank you for all of you being here. I was just curious how your approach to this or your headspace was different or similar when making Happy Go Lucky.
Just repeat the question.
How your headspace for this was different or similar to Happy Go Lucky, which is a different film, and this is a question actually that other people have asked.
Well, yes, some people have, this isn't what you're saying or asking, but some people have talked about what they perceive as a kind of either a similarity or a symbiotic relationship between Pansy and Poppy, the protagonist of Happy Go Lucky. Again, it's something that never occurred to me, particularly. They're two very different kinds of women, people, and they're two very different, in a way, they're different kinds of films. Just the actual question is... What my mindset? I don't know. I don't even know that I had a mindset. I mean, it's a hard one, with all due respect to your question. I mean, let me try and answer it a bit more responsibly. I'm motivated as much as anything by feeling. And my feelings about Poppy are very positive, and a very positive woman and character and spirit. My feelings about, but of course, with sympathy, my feelings about Pansy are entirely sympathetic. But of course, you know that you're dealing with somebody that is hard work, for everybody, and hard work for herself. If what I've just said describes my mindset, then I'm glad to have been able to answer your question in the esoteric terms in which you asked it.
Yes, back there.
Don't get any easier.
First of all, thank you so much for the film. It was so beautiful and moving. I'm curious why nobody in the film... First of all, the film shows daily joy in such a persuasive way, which you often do in your films. But Pansy, has no access to the daily joy. And I was curious why nobody talks to her about depression, because clearly her anger is a form of depression, at least it seemed that way to me. But is it because, and I guess it's a question to both of you, that her armor is so formidable that no one dares try to pierce it? But I was just curious why no one around her really names it.
Is that true?
I don't think the word depression does it come up in the film? Maybe I missed it.
Don't you feel... Where are you? I don't know who you...
Oh,
your hand up.
I'm right
there,
here.
fine.
Yeah.
do not feel in some way that what you're talking about is happening or possibly going to happen or starting to happen with her sister.
Yes, and maybe even with her husband at the end, because maybe, I don't know. I don't know. What do you think?
Well,
You who embodied Pansy.
in a way, it's not for. We take the film to. We say here are these people. Here are these problems. Here are these conditions. Over to you. However, to answer what you're talking about on a slightly different level, I would say that in the difficult society that we all live in, with all kinds of people, including, and nobody here can tell me, none of you here can say that you can't relate to somebody or other who is a pansy of some sort. The truth is that people don't go around objectively analysing each other, but people live with what's going on, and they don't, maybe at some stage they will get to criticising or questioning, but they often don't, because it's part of the running condition of life, and of how people are, and people are putting up with things and surviving and getting on with their own thing, and all those other reasons why not everybody questions everything in the way that people do in movies. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I think you sort of nailed it, really. And I think there are enough clues for the audience to kind of figure out what may be going on with her. And I think it's very interesting that you felt that no one actually was sort of labeling what it was that was going on, because I don't think people do necessarily.
And certainly, it would not be in this, as far as I'm concerned, it would not be in the spirit of the film to suddenly make the character start articulating objectively what her problem or the problem is. It will be inorganic and unnatural, and the film would degenerate into another kind of film, of which there are plenty out there.
And can I also just say that even the idea of trying to have that kind of conversation with her makes me nervous on behalf of anyone who would try, to be honest. I think that's one of the powerful things about the characters, that you can feel the buffer that everyone creates around her to protect themselves from her when they need to.
But I really am, as I said before the screening, I'm not really disposed to explain the film or talk about it, but you really shouldn't ignore what's happening or potentially happening with Chantel, her sister. I think that's important.
One more, up and back.
I got a question about your casting. You cast some wonderful actors in all of your films. Tell me a little bit about your casting process.
Well, as I've said, the first requirement is to find character actors. I don't, have never and will never look at self-tapes, which I think should be banned, incidentally. I spend a lot of time, I mean, when you came, not you, it's such a long time ago, but when you came to see me a couple of years ago when we were casting, how long do you think, at the first meeting, how long were you in my office, do you reckon?
Almost close to 2 hours.
No, in the first
The first session.
yeah. Certainly half an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that.
I mean, I see people, we chat, and then if it seems like a good idea, I pull them back a bit later and spend what Tuwaine is remembering, which is to get them to do somebody they know and to act them in a natural way and do all that. That really is the answer to your question. I have to say, and I'm sure you meant this in your question, that for me, what I'm as pleased about as anything with this film is that all the actors, including the ones playing the smallest parts, not least the brilliant actress who plays the cashier in the supermarket, are all consummate, brilliant character actors, and they all deliver the goods in an immaculate way. And I think that's a blessing, really, because we are blessed, certainly in the UK, with fantastic character actors.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.